September. Was it 5 years ago? Yeah, that would have been a nice warm welcome for Ravi, wouldn't it? So I'm just going to switch slides here because we're on different technology. I'm on PC, he's on Mac. Okay. So, who here today came to learn something very specific about mentoring? Do you have that answer yet? Okay, if it hasn't been answered yet, I'm going to share a little bit more about my experience with running and sharing and designing and implementing mentorship programs. So there are some sticky notes in the center of your table, so feel free to make a note of what it is that you particularly want to take away. And then after my segment, Ravi and I and Linda are going to have kind of like a fireside conversation, which will be some of the questions that typically come up, and then we'll be opening the floor to Q&A as well, so we get your questions answered. Sound good? Sound good? Okay. So Ravi was talking about today's economy, and I think that there is definitely much more of an interest in the concept of social enterprise. I'm a big fan of it, and I believe that we can develop businesses and we can do good at the same time. And it's really important to, as leaders and as the human resources departments, that we initiate these conversations around what's really required in a changing environment. So, with the crashing of the waves, many of you probably are familiar with the concept of VUCA. It's a term that the Center for Creative Leadership created in conjunction with a couple of other researchers several years ago. And at the time, they were talking about VUCA standing for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Does that sound like anybody's workplace? Yeah, okay. However, with that move from I to we, it's actually shifted what's being needed as leaders. And now what we're finding is we actually now need to be rupt. Who feels rupt today? Okay, so rupt is to work in an environment where we can make decisions that are rapid, that deal with unpredictability, that are paradoxical, and we avoid getting tangled. So this is the world that we're living in now. It's about managing changes effectively, challenging assumptions, and I think through those mentorship conversations that we can actually help our staff, our less seasoned staff, to be really effective in making decisions on the spot. Because one of the things I've learned about leadership is you usually are bottlenecks. Hate to tell you that, but very often, as leaders, you create the bottleneck because the employees on your team are not comfortable making those decisions themselves. They don't have that full scope of responsibility. They're not ready to actually step up and be accountable. So that's part of the beauty of mentoring, is we help the less seasoned staff to get more comfortable with making those decisions so that they're only bringing to you the really big issues and not just the day-to-day things. We're encouraging them to be accountable and take control. The other thing is building this culture of agility, which is where I'm certified in emotional intelligence, so I'm a big fan, obviously, of exploring how we can actually bring our softer side to work. It's not all about command and control anymore. That's not what our young generation is looking for in leadership. It's about being empathetic. It's about knowing in the situation what are the skills you need to bring forward as a leader, and sharing that in a way that encourages your staff to ask questions. Because sometimes, have you noticed that who has teenage kids here? If you tell them to clean their room, does it work? Right? Yeah, but if you ask them, and usually a little bit of bartering helps, right? One of my favorite conversations was when I had remarried, and my husband's daughter was at the time 14. How do you get a 14-year-old to do anything? I mean, so she would come to me and she'd say, "Can you take me to the mall?" I'd say, "Absolutely. And you know what? I think your room would benefit by having a little bit of a freshen up. So we could go about 4 o'clock. Do you think you'll have your room cleaned by then?" What's she going to say? No? Yeah. So and that's a simple example of teenagers, but when we ask them how to solve their own problem, they're more addicted and I use that word intentionally, they're more addicted to the outcome because it was their idea. So they're invested in it. So by asking coach-like questions makes a huge difference to the response that you get from your staff and how quickly they jump on taking action on something. It was their idea to act right away. So it's about using emotional intelligent leadership, bringing that caring mindset into the conversation, because that's what helps to attract and retain staff. Who's working for, well, maybe you won't put your hand up if your boss is here, but who's ever worked for a leader who didn't feel like they actually, or who didn't show that they actually cared? How did that feel? Right? Yeah. If you have a friend at work, that's again one of those statistics that helps with employee engagement if you have a good friend at work. So we want to create a caring work environment. And we're showing that we're caring because we're willing to invest in people. We're willing to invest in putting in place something that is a formalized mentorship program perhaps, that is something that will foster those conversations, will encourage knowledge transfer, and it helps to also build in the capability of innovation. Because if you think about it, if your staff are just heads down, they don't really feel engaged in their work, they don't really like their team or their boss, they're just getting a paycheck, they're not going to bring forward those innovative ideas. They're not going to share their wisdom with the organization so that you can have a first to market advantage. They're going to probably keep that to themselves. So by encouraging mentorship conversations, raising the engagement of staff, that's when you start to have deeper, richer conversations, and that's where the ideas come out. Your employees know what needs to happen in the organization to increase revenue, to save money, to save customers, to add new products. They know what's needed. We have to draw it out. And if they don't feel comfortable and engaged, they're not going to share. So there's a missed opportunity if we're not leveraging these conversations. And it also encourages them to be more accountable, because as a mentor, you can ask them, I've shared a little bit about how I did it. How does that apply to your situation? What can you take away from what I shared about my experience during this particular project? And that's when you get them engaged, creating their own solution. And they're more accountable, and it fosters transparency. So I love this quote, Lao Tzu, thank you very much, give a man a fish. I mean, that's really what we're doing with mentorship. We're not telling them exactly what to do and all the individual steps. I mean, you could, but it's way more fun to just help them learn how to fish and see what they catch and see what they do and how fast they run with that new information. It's about growing and developing. So why mentorship? I do a lot of work, as Linda mentioned, with women. That's my focus for the last 10 years since I got my Royal Roads Executive Coach certification. I've always specialized in working with women. So globally, one of the groups I chaired the mentorship program for 3 years is BPW. If you've never heard of them, don't worry, because I think they're one of the world's best kept secrets. There are only about 40,000 members globally, but no one's ever heard of them. I think there's a communications gap there. So for them, it's about networking and skill building, because they're working on advocacy projects to help increase working conditions globally for women. Now, we did a survey, or they did a survey, just as I was starting the mentorship program. I thought, well, I'm going to tap into this. So their young BPW is actually members who are 35 and under. That's the criteria. So this was back in 2004, but it was global. 68%, over 68% of the members were wanting to learn from other BPW members. And at the time, there was only one of the chapters globally, which is Calgary, that was really embracing the concept of mentorship. 1 in 2 women, and this is from OSPI report, cite that they lack mentorship and feel disrespected by co-workers and clients. This is from the STEM industry in particular, but 1 in 2. So we need to have more of these conversations. KPMG, there's more data here. 67% of women reported that they learned the most important lessons from other women. Surprise, right? And that's where those mentorship conversations are really powerful. 82% of professional working women believe that getting access to female leaders will help them advance. And have you ever thought, oh, I'd love to call up Arlene Dickinson, I wonder if she'd have coffee with me? Or maybe not Arlene, maybe Oprah, whatever. Who do you know that can make that introduction for you? That's one of the most powerful elements of mentorship, is being introduced to circles of influence that you would never get access to otherwise, that your mentor already has those circles of influence. 82% women report when they see more women in leadership. John and I were talking about this morning. When you see someone who's in the role that you want, you know it's possible. And this is something that young teenage girls see all the time. They see one person and they go for it because they know it's possible. 76% of women plan to personally take active steps to help other women advance in their careers. So women in particular, we're conversationalists. We have different leadership qualities that I think really serve us than our male counterparts who have other gifts. But certainly the conversation piece, when it's done well, can be really, really powerful to help move a woman along in her career. A couple more stats. This one is from Catalyst. Everyone familiar with Catalyst? If you're doing work with women, you got to start looking up Catalyst data. They've been around for 50 years or more and doing excellent, deep research. 65% of women who receive career development are now developing other women, 73% of the time. Whereas men generally are helping women at a lower rate. So for the women in the room, again, that's why I love working with mentorship programs for women, because they really have embraced the power of it. So I like to use this model when I'm working with my clients. So in the grand scheme of things, there's lots of ways that you can develop in your career. So it's important, obviously, to have a champion or a sponsor within your organization. Typically, that's someone who's 2 levels up from you, who will go to bat for you, who will keep an eye out for when there's opportunities that haven't been put on the job list yet, but are being discussed and talked about. That your manager knows what your career aspirations are. So I have my clients and mentees, proteges, to define what their career aspirations are. We talk about what are some things that they can do, and then define 3 development goals, because 3 is a lot, right? How many of us can remember 5 minutes later more than 3 things, right? So we've got to keep the focus tight. So having those champions and sponsors aware of what your career aspirations are makes a difference. I encourage women to have at least 2 mentors. Have a male mentor, have a female mentor. See what differences those conversations provide. And then have at least 3 peers in your network, people who are in the room to help brag you up. Or as we call it for women, amplify. If you've ever been in a meeting and a woman next to you has come up with a brilliant idea and then no one really sort of jumped on it and listened, and then 5 minutes later the guy in the corner says, hey, I've got a great idea, blah, 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 and repeats it. No one's ever seen that happen, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your role as women is to support each other, amplify. Oh, great point, Joe. Thank you for reiterating what Mary shared 5 minutes ago. What a great idea. Yeah. So have 3 or 4 peers who know what your capabilities are. They've seen you on projects. They can, again, speak to your results. They know how you work. Obviously have a coach, very important, image consultant. Now that could be image, right? For women, dress for the role that you want, not the role that you have. But it's also important on social media, for men as well. What is it that you want to portray to the outside world? If you're looking for a new job, or you want to get promoted, what's your social image? Not just your physical image. So I encourage you to think about mentorship in that context. It's just one of the tools. However, it's a really, really powerful tool to have in your kit bag for development. So I get very often asked, what's the difference, right? I'm a manager. Am I a mentor? Am I a coach? I'm a mentor. I'm a trainer. Am I a mentor? So there's a few differences. Coaching is very future-based. It's asking about possibility and option. Where could we go with this? What could you envision might be your next step? Counseling, very often talking about what happened to you as a child, going backwards. Consulting is more about being the expert in telling. Training, again, is telling. Managing, hopefully, it's asking. and telling. You know, here's what we're rooting for our outcome in 3 months. How do you think you might approach it? What are your first couple of steps? So understand that they know what the goal is and they are on the right track and getting there. And then mentoring is a combination as well of telling and asking. So it's, you know, this is how I did that particular thing. How do you think you might approach it? Learning what I found as a pitfall, a trap, or a challenge that I found along the way that I just shared with you. How could you avoid that? So it's about taking the person's experience in context, as Ravi shared, and applying it. I don't think I could do that because it's too risky. My husband wouldn't understand. My kids would hate me if I take that job in Seattle tomorrow. But here's what I am willing to do. So the protege creates their own map. So Ravi put up a definition of mentorship. I do a lot of work with women, can you tell? They perk up usually when they see Brad Pitt. But I mean, at the end of the day, mentorship is not something that's a new concept. It's becoming more in the common buzzwords now for effective leadership approaches to include mentorship, but it's been around forever. 800 BC, Odysseus, king of Africa, had a son and went off to war for 10 years, and Telemachus was the son and mentor, was the gentleman who was actually charged with looking after him and teaching him when his father was gone. So it's been around for a long, long time. It's not fully leveraged though. So my definition as a mentor is a seasoned person. Now that could be, I've got 2 more years experience than you have. That doesn't make me superior, but it makes me seasoned, right? I've had different experiences. Who helps guide, encourage, support, and counsel another person, typically through the world of work, with the focus on personal and professional growth, and helping them to discover their own responses. Teach the man to fish, or teach the woman to fish, to challenges. So this is me. I think I'm 5, and my first photograph with my mom. So she was my original, what I call unmentor. And I say that because she actually showed me all the things not to do. She was a stay-at-home mom. She was a business working professional. My dad came back from the war, from the Second World War, PTSD. He got a bullet in Dunkirk, and he was just, I thought he was just angry. And he was very controlling. My mom told him how to drive. He took the car keys and wouldn't let her drive. He literally drained power right out of her by keeping her freedom chained up. And so she showed me all the things, what not to do as a young woman, and watching those experiences was part of the reason I wrote the book, because I swore I was never going to be in that position, and I was never going to be the mouse that didn't speak up. So writing my book really brought that out. So thanks, Mom, you taught me a lot, but not in the way that you intended. So now I do work with, oh look, there's me standing in this room on stage. Work with women doing different mentorship programs, chairing different programs, designing, implementing, speaking, and that's how I share my wisdom en masse through my book, through my radio show, etc. So I do still have lots of one-on-one conversations with proteges. I do a lot of work differently though, in a bigger scale. So for these books, by the way, you did, if you were a paid member today, get a gift of the book as part of your subscription here. For every 10 books, I'm donating a stack of 10 for a women's foundation, not-for-profit or shelter. Just so I've already started those donations, which is awesome. Social enterprise, buy one, give one. It feels so good. Everybody can implement a piece of that in their business if you give some thought to it. So as Ravi shared, the role of the mentor really is about creating a safe space for conversation, building that trust and confidentiality, giving guidance, giving encouragement along the way, support and wisdom, putting clear boundaries in place. If we say we're meeting at 4, we're meeting at 4, or you let me know a day before, please. That's just building respect, right? And if we work with those kind of attributes, it's good for habit building for the proteges. It really does make a difference. Encourage clarity, action, action, action. comfortable learning environment, challenge them, play devil's advocate, right? You know, that's an interesting idea. Have you considered maybe this might be something to give further thought to? If you went this way versus, you know, what's your other option? Can we look at some choices here? Let's get creative, encouraging them. And obviously being accessible yourself. So, you know, we are all busy, we're leaders, we have busy work roles, but finding the time as a priority, because developing our staff is a priority. If we don't develop them, they'll leave, and then we have a bigger problem. I know this from my 15 years of HR. I think I interviewed and hired about 6,000 people in my career. And invariably it was the managers that didn't invest the time to get to know their employees and show that they were caring and listening and creating a work environment where they could be successful, that lost their people. When I worked as a VP of talent management for Right Management, which many of you know, global organization, works with 4,500 companies, doing a lot of downsizing. I would typically ask the manager when I got a call for a severance meeting, you know, what can I ask a little more about the background, like why is this person being released? And so often it was a fit issue, because the hiring manager just lost a great employee and just needs a warm body, right? They need someone now, and they didn't invest time in hiring the right person. They didn't create a nurturing environment, so it wasn't conducive to them staying. So we can do the same thing with mentorship and encourage them to foster connections and increase their personal emotional intelligence, but also their personal awareness of how their career is evolving because of the work that they're investing in themselves. The role of the protege, obviously showing respect and listening, being brave, willing to take action, curious, open-minded, and they give feedback too. This is not a one-way street. You know, thank you for my mentor. What I really found valuable was X, Y, Z, and that really helps me as a mentor to grow and expand and know where to put the emphasis in my next protege conversation. But be thirsty for knowledge. That's really important. So the rewards for both. I know from my mentorship conversations, it takes me back to when I was a little earlier in my career, and things that I had forgotten were issues then. Things that, because I'm in a different stage of life, my son is now 24, I wouldn't necessarily remember the pain of trying to juggle babysitting and working and balance, and it's not coming together. And it really revives my passion to actually make some change in areas that I hadn't thought about. There we go. Bringing a fresh perspective. You know, I don't use Instagram, but I know a lot of my proteges do, so if I want to learn how to use Instagram, I'm just going to pick up the phone and say, hey, can you spend half an hour with me and reverse mentor me? Because I need that knowledge. It's an opportunity to leave a legacy. Again, John and I talked about that at the table too. It's really important to be thinking about not just one generation, but a couple of generations. How can you share your knowledge, share your wisdom, and make an impact? And also, you get to highlight your organization. If you're in a public mentorship program, you get to kind of know if you want to hire that person or not because of the great answers that they're giving you. It's almost like hiring a co-op student. And how valuable has that been, right? You get to test them out a little bit. And so for the protege, obviously they get to make more senior connections, but they also get to explore different career paths, different areas that they might not have thought about, more advanced strategies. The key to mentorship is, as Ravi said, the proteges don't know what they don't know. So it's hard for them to come up with the questions because it's not even on their radar. So by having the conversation with the mentor and saying, here's where I'm at, can you shed some light on that topic? Or have you ever been in this situation? The mentor can then share their experience and start that conversation. It usually heads down a way different path than where it would have gone with just the protege looking at their answer. So it's really important to build trust in a mentorship relationship. I very often reference this work done by 3 PhD ladies at CCL, because it's an easy thing to remember. If you want to nurture trust, 3 C's. Competence, show that you are competent and skilled in your area. Show that you're consistent, and when you say you're going to deliver something, you deliver it every time. And one of my favorite lines on an email is, as promised, here's the ... as promised, ... So you're building up that I can be trusted mindset. It's almost then a given that, of course, I'm going to give this person something they can be trusted. They can take on bigger projects. And caring is about not just asking for input, but doing something about it. If any of the HR ladies in the room, or men, have ever experienced an employee engagement survey, right? You ever done one of those? Yeah. We ask for feedback, and then we take it to leadership. And sometimes there's an opportunity to do something with it right away, and sometimes that kind of falls flat. So the next time when someone asks for feedback, it's like, well, I'm not giving feedback, no one did anything last time. So it's really important to show the caring by not just listening, but trying back. Love that idea, here's what we can implement right away. This idea is going to take a bit more budget funding or a little bit of a window of time, so we'll have to put this as a second priority. But feedback, letting them know that I heard you, and here's what I'm going to do with that information is very important. And this can be built into the mentor conversations. So powerful questions. I love, I'm curious. Can you share a little bit about? Versus if I just said, Peter, can you share a bit about? Whoa! Right? If you're coming from a place of curiosity, there's less judgment, especially when you're asking about something that's gone wrong. Right? Tell me why. Why did you do that? That's going to get people on the spot right away, and it's going to get them defensive, and that energy of negativity then permeates the conversation. Whereas if you start with, I'm curious, can you tell me a little bit about how we got to this place? It's a very different energy of positivity and possibility. When could we? Love that one. What if? So these are great questions as a mentor to be asking of a protege, and then very rarely do I use why, because it gets people's backs up. So I find another way to ask the question, and it is about asking versus telling. If you want someone else to do something, find a way to ask a question to help them see why they should be doing it and what benefits there could be versus telling them how to do it. So I love this quote. At any given moment, we have two options, either to step forward into growth or step back into safety. The other thing I just wanted to touch on briefly is there's a lot of research out there about creating environments where people flourish. And when they flourish and they're giving that extra, the word has escaped me for a moment, discretionary effort. When they're giving discretionary effort, it's because they're fully engaged in what your organization is about. They fully understand the purpose, they're clear on the direction that team is going, what the outcomes are, and how to measure success. Every one of the employees in the organization should know what success looks like for them. So in Dan Paint's work, he talks about 3 things that are contributing to motivated staff. Understanding what the purpose is and how their role clearly aligns with the direction the company is going in. To have autonomy, so they're not having a manager looking over their shoulder and asking questions every 5 seconds. They can do a lot of their work independently. And mastery, and that's the tie to mentorship. Because mastery is like learning the violin, right? It's an asymptote, you're never finished. But if you can continue to evolve and grow and get better, you can do that more quickly with great mentorship conversations. So just as a sample, when I'm working with organizations, this is actually one framework that I developed for BPW. Very often the mentors, if they're new to a program, I don't know what to talk about. What do we start with? So I built out a 6-month program with suggested topic areas. You know, the first thing is about getting clear on goals. The second thing is about defining what success looks like and what might be some challenges or barriers to success. The third one is about, looking at what the early successes that have resulted from that conversation are, and what are the things that contribute that you could bring into the conversation. And again, this kind of openness at the beginning of a program sets the protege up for success too, because then they're not walking in saying, I don't know what to ask my mentor. And it's that uncomfortable silence. Okay? So confirming confidentiality, that's the key piece. building trust, creating a safe container. Now, why are these goals even important to the protege? Why did they sign up to be mentored? It's great to have those early conversations and then lead into having more discussion about issues or challenges or learning or defining top goals, and then starting to look at resources. Where else, other than these conversations? Is there a book, a video, a clip, a TED Talk? Where else can I tap into this information? So just to put it in perspective, mentorship does a lot of good in an organization. If we have staff who leave, that's just one piece of the puzzle, right? But if you've ever had someone who's come and handed their notice to you and they give you a week's notice, maybe it's 2 weeks, but if they're in a field that's really, really hard to replace, there's a lot of costs that then instantly are incurred. And so, replacement costs are one thing. Then there's also, if you rush, the bad hire costs. I've seen the result of many of these conversations, and then the impact on the organization. So, if you're using recruitment advertising, for example, that can get you lots of volume, but it doesn't necessarily get you the quality. You get quantity, particularly in Calgary right now, and that can potentially skew your advertising numbers. If you're working with an agency, obviously there's fees involved. The whole screening, interviewing piece is time consuming. Competition hires your trained staff. That's a big loss, right? You train them, and now they've gone to work for a competitor. The customer satisfaction piece is a really important piece of their customer facing, because that's something where they've built a relationship over time. You can't just plop a new person into the role to replace them and have that same strength of relationship. It takes time to build that up. The orientation costs, severance and vacation pay, obviously, legal costs if they challenge it, lost co-worker productivity as well. Right? Very often we forget about the survivors that are left behind picking up the work, the slack, because now there's less people on the team. So all of these costs, if you think about your return on investment when it comes to mentorship, even if you can prevent people from leaving, let alone engaging them and getting them providing innovation ideas that could take your company to new heights, it really does make a difference. As you can tell, I'm kind of passionate about this topic. So my last couple of slides are really about creating this positive environment. So using positive psychology. So leading with things like appreciative inquiry. So instead of asking, what's wrong, you're bringing in what's working really well. How could it be even better? Great place to start. Great conversation between mentor and protege. And then using a coach approach, which is again about asking, what action could you take? What are your options? What are your possibilities? What's the best choice for you? I don't know why this keeps stopping. And helping them to be accountable because they're the one who created the idea. So this is all about potentially increasing sales, because you have employees who are so proud at that company barbecue or summer hockey game that when someone sits next to them, they say, hey, what do you do? Where do you work? Willingly, they share. I work at this fantastic organization. We have such strong values of X, Y, Z. And the company contributes to the United Way, whatever the social enterprise piece is. Love working there. What do you do? Oh, that sounds interesting. We might be able to support each other. Can we have a conversation? Do you have your calendar handy? Let's book a follow-up conversation. And all of your staff can do that. It's really easy when they're motivated and engaged. So it does potentially increase the opportunity for sales conversations, saves turnover, takes that lackluster employee to one who's motivated, and this whole energy of reciprocity is very, very important as we move from this I mentality to we mentality. It's about sharing wisdom, sharing knowledge, and creating sustainable business. So just, for those of you who haven't yet had a protege, what do they say after you've been working with them for a few months? This is one of my favorite ladies. She's the Human Resources Manager. She's also now the President for BPW Calgary. So, for her, it was about getting grounded in her strengths and reconnecting her voice. That was a really important piece that she wanted to take away, elevating her confidence. The journey's a lot brighter Wouldn't it be fun to make someone's journey a lot brighter? Yeah, so rewarding. People will forget what you said, forget what you do, but they never forget how you made them feel. I love that Maya Angelou quote. Thank you. And this, my most recent one, this is new from last week. We just wrapped up a nine-month mentorship. She's an operations manager for Western Canada for a appliance company. Again, interested in developing confidence in her decision making so that she could show strong leadership. So she wanted to understand how to approach various situations, determine the best decision, be steadfast and confident, and come across as that leader that she wanted to be, building trust with her team. So it works. I'm going the wrong way here. No, I'm not going the wrong way. Got 2 slides in there, look. So next steps, my suggestion, these are suggestions. You're coming to this conversation for information, inspiration perhaps, some action items. Start thinking about the opportunities that you have within your organization to engage, attract, and grow, which is where mentorship comes in, your staff. And think about, what are some of the costs that are draining away from my business already? Because if there's no mentorship internally in your organization, where are the staff that want mentoring, the high potentials, where are they going to go? They're going to go find an industry mentor outside, possibly in your competition, and guess what? They're going to get probably scooped at some point. So it's really good to have the family feel and build those programs internally. Quantify and calculate what the lost opportunities are, the turnover costs you have right now. Just check it out and see. Is this something that's worth considering to switch gears, focus on mentorship, stop losing top talent, and we can book meetings at the end of this session if you would like to do that. Because at the end of the day, if it's not valuable for your organization, if we can't see a clear path to why you should do this, then nobody wins, right? There's no conversation to be had. Ravi and I are very much on the same page about that. We want companies to be successful, and if you can't be successful, we can't be successful either. Okay, so that's my share. Linda.